Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet another presentation of the CPM Evening Presentation Series, popularly known as Evening for Managers. Here we are today gathering for the 30th presentation of EFM. Today we are going to talk about working from home during and beyond pandemic era. That being said, of course, today the EFM is online, and when we started, it was physical event. But rest assured that the online EFM is as good as what we used to have physically. So we have a power-packed set of speakers and a wonderful moderator today lined up as well. Moving on to the program, let me take you through a small preamble on the topic that we are going to discuss today. With the sudden onset of the COVID-19 pandemic and the subsequent lockdown and social distancing, employees had to find new ways to continue their work, which was hitherto done in central offices routinely. Fortunately, technology by then had advanced sufficiently for people to stay at home and use Zoom technology to continue working. Working from home is a concept where the worker does not commute to a central office but does his or her work from home. Thus, the home doubles as a workplace. The medium he uses is information and telecommunications technology, which means he or she has access to anyone, anywhere, at any time the person wants. CPM Sri Lanka will assess the impact of working from home and the attendant pros and cons and evaluate whether this concept will continue to be a part of our lives in the future. Moving forward, let me take the honor of officially welcoming all the panelists, moderator, governing council members, as well as the wonderful audience with a glimpse of CPM, Chartered Professional Managers of Sri Lanka. The EFM presentation series is organized by Education Research Development Committee. And CPM Sri Lanka has over 3,000 members and are engaged in the conduct of professional management diploma programs, executive management development programs, knowledge sharing sessions, research forums, international management conferences, the release of biannual management journals, and organizing various other networking events for its members as well as well-wishers. CPM Sri Lanka is recognized internationally, and it is an active member of the Association of Management Development Institutions in South Asia, ANDISA. Without further ado, let me take your attention towards the first presenter, and let me present to you his profile, a few lines, of course. The presenter is Mr. Montini Varnakula, who is the Chief Operating Officer of LOLC Finance PLC. As a Chief Operating Officer of LOLC Finance PLC, he has more than 29 years of experience in the banking and finance industry. He is a director of the Sri Lanka Leasing Association at present, LASL. He is a certified member of the Sri Lanka Institute of Marketing, SLIM, and a fellow member of the Institute of Chartered Professional Managers of Sri Lanka. Mr. Varnakula, the house is all yours.
Hello, hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on working from home during and beyond the pandemic era. So let me thank CPM for giving this opportunity to speak on this wonderful topic. Of course, when you relate this topic, there are many areas that we can discuss about or argue upon, but I will only take you or take audience through the key features or key findings, what we have observed, what we have seen during this pandemic and the post-pandemic era. My thought of discussion will cover on four key areas. We will first see what went right, and then we will of course see what went wrong. Of course, we need to see that. And then lessons learned whether we have learned anything or it's just a facts that we have gone through, or whether we have come back to square one. And of course, finally, the customer intervention and the impact to the value chain. I come from a finance background, finance marketing background, and a banking background. So I will relate certain items to that section as well. But my overall discussion would be in line with the industry. Yeah. So if we look at what went right, there are many areas all of us can debate about. But key areas for my understanding, key areas would be, if you look at the employee and the employer, in terms of employee, flexible work schedules. So we know that remote working gave us the facility to adapt to flexible work schedules. So apart from the flexible work schedule, what else did it bring to the employee? Of course, flexible work schedules, while adapting to flexible work schedules, actually what happened was people went into more task-oriented completion of work. They had the opportunity to complete the given tasks because during the pandemic, there was a limitation in the output or the throughput. Of course, that was inevitable. So then the staff was required to complete certain tasks during those periods. So the flexible work schedules was basically, pushed on to the employees. There was no choice, and that is something that went right. Even if we didn't have pandemic, we wouldn't have been able to adapt to this kind of a work schedule. Then, secondly, looking at it, the job opportunity. With scaling down of staff in major companies, certain companies, and closure of some companies, this gave a platform to many to seek other remote job opportunities, and for some people, some staff, to even start up their own selling platforms. I mean, when you lose your job, you have to feed. If you're the breadwinner of the house, you need to make that money. So we saw a lot of mushroom companies coming up on online platforms, selling clothes to food, cosmetics to perishable to non-perishable items. I mean, that is something that we really experienced during that time. I think I don't have statistics, but certain online platforms are still operating, and some are very successful even right now. In addition, working from home has continuously highlighted as a measure to improve female labor force participation in Sri Lanka, which has been stagnating at low level for a prolonged period. Work from home is a mechanism to augment resource availability in the country and thereby to contribute to the growth or the GDP of the country. Point number 3, cost of living. Of course, the main cost would be commuting and other related expenses. All of this drastically came down. Even I experienced I stay quite far from my workplace. The cutting down of fuel, maintenance of vehicles, and related, the office attire that I need to, have my purchase, all that came to a very low amount. Not mentioning even the other expenses as well. So when you travel, there are other expenses which related to their office routine. Everything came to a sort of a standstill, apart from feeding the family and feeding yourself, feeling good, but other expenses really came down. If you look at point number 4, a better work-life balance. This statement can be argued upon, but I would stick to this because the employees had more time during work hours. to attend to their personal matters, even their child and parent welfare. I mean, that is something that you will never get when you work in office, especially child and parent welfare, if you are able to attend at given point, at any given point. But of course, that could have come as a hindrance, and a little percentage of distraction came along too. I will not say no to that point. So if you look at from the employer's perspective, embracing diversity, to get involved or to involve people from range of different social and ethnic backgrounds and different genders, age, physical abilities, etc., race. So this was something that which came up from the pandemic, because this was limited if it was a brick and mortar model operation for any company. But of course, certain companies have certain rules where they have the option of onboarding all these the sectors which I mentioned. And also, not to mention, embrace different culture. Of course, this relates to the previous points as well, where where the culture, okay, it relates to the first point as well. As point number 3, I would take staff expenses. Needless to say that maintaining a brick and mortar model versus a remote operation, to what extent your company costs can be curtailed or bring down. I mean, everybody could have experienced this kind of expense reduction. Of course, the turnover too was reduced to a certain extent, but then the reduction on maintenance of building, the rent, high rent areas, electricity, versus all the other expenses were technically came down by, I think, 30 to 50%, depending on the business that everybody is in. Then point number 4, something that nobody, I think, has understood or realized: contribution to the triple bottom line. The company I work with is really keen on the triple bottom line as a finance company, but we did an estimate of what kind of carbon emissions reduction that we could do, save paper and ink. I mean, the numbers are, really amazing. But then that was something which was unplanned. It was unplanned, but still it had a good effect. Going forward, just if you want to see what went wrong, or these are only few key points which I'm taking for the understanding of the forum. What went wrong? If you look at the employee perspective, level of engagement. So level of engagement is something that employees do need to have or to be, in their prime of giving output. But that is something that which really missed when you work remotely. The level of engagement really goes from the back door, I think. And also level of performance. There was no proper mechanism or yardstick to do that level of performance, because the employees would be dealing on tasks. They would be completing tasks. So whether they took X number of hours or what kind of time duration they take is questionable, or rather not measurable, because during this period, it was only the tasks that we or the company or the employer insisted on completing. Of course, not to mention level of motivation. When you work alone, when you work remotely, compared to when you work in an office environment, we all know the level of engagement always leads up to motivation, not to mention stress as well, dissatisfaction as well. But then level of motivation is always something that the employees look forward. You need to be motivated on a daily basis, on hourly basis. It depends on which sector you're in, whether you're in manufacturing, you're in financing, or you're in customer service, or in, whatever the sector, you need motivation on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and sometimes even hourly basis. So this is something that nobody could, of course, there are certain companies, certain industries where they had this motivation going up even virtually. They celebrated certain festivals, they celebrated certain events of the company, even service awards took place during this period, but of course, nothing like doing it in person or in a gathering. Finally, on what went wrong area, expectation to work extended working hours. This was something that I think which is true, because since the employees are at home, you would call them or you would instruct them even at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, or maybe even later, saying that this task need to be performed or this activity has to be completed. Simply the fact taking into understanding, saying that you're at home, you're in your safe place, you don't have to travel, so might as well work extra hours and get this job completed. Of course, the Sri Lankan culture is not similar to the Western culture or the European culture, where they have the privilege of working that given 8 hours or 9 hours and then close shop and say nothing doing until tomorrow. So, but the Sri Lankan culture is a bit different. People are obliged people oblige their seniors, superiors. So then expectation to work extended hours always is the case. So I'll look at the employer side as well. Culture building and collaboration is something that the company needs or company requires to have, because that is where, apart from the job role, that is where something the company relies on. Of course, peer and hierarchical relationships, because people wouldn't turn up to office or their factories or their workplaces, not regularly, maybe once a month or every fortnight, but then maintaining this peer and hierarchical relationships was really damaged during this period. Of course, the procedures not being digitalized, because the front end would be really on the digital surface, but then the companies were not ready to give the procedures, the back end, a fully digitalized version, because certain limitations were there during that time. Of course, from employees' point of view, flexible work schedule was a plus factor for them. But then looking at the employee, it is difficult to gather people during the same time frame, because employees prefer to have their own work schedules. So that we see as a nothing, not to say what went wrong, but that is something that we will not be able to correct. Looking at the lessons learned, I will just briefly tell you the isolation and boredom. This too, we have seen even in certain companies, staff coming and complaining about this, where they cannot execute their tasks because they work in isolation. There can be different domestic scenarios where they face, where they prefer to come to office, where the atmosphere is different, but then working from home has really gone into their heads without this. One interesting factor is that the digital literacy levels in Sri Lanka. Digital literacy levels in Sri Lanka keeps at 30.8 and computer literacy at 46%. This is from the 2020 Department of Census and Statistics numbers. So you can see, despite what effort we make, how difficult it will be to take working from home, a digital solution to customers and the value chain. And of course, the ICT infrastructure, information and communication technology in Sri Lanka, the development of that is really, really slow. Of course, work-life balance, it's arguable statement. Somebody might say it is not so, but I will stick to that because the work-life balance has, for me, in my opinion, it is a positive factor. Finally, we have understood that what's been practiced in Sri Lanka is a technically people-driven business model. So it should be definitely, it should turn on to process-driven business model. So these are the lessons learned in this topic, which I spoke about. So impact to the value chain. So I'll just briefly tell these are the statistics, or these are the components of the value chain which contributes to all activities. And what I have gathered here is that certain industries representing this value chain, the level of engagement by each sector, the level of engagement. So let's go through with that. If you look at the food essentials, these are the details from the main players. These are not published statistics, but these are details from the main players. If you look at the food essentials, post-pandemic, again, the food essentials, the purchase of food essentials by all communities, all customers, all suppliers has gone back to brick and mortar model, where it was on a scale or level of engagement, it would have been this high during the pandemic. Of course, garment and clothing, basic necessity, was on the other area. Very little engagement on the digital side during the pandemic, but then again come to a large extent in the post-pandemic area. But interesting to say, the education in public sector, the government really pushed this and promoted this. It was on a very large scale, apart from few unfortunate areas where schools didn't have, the areas didn't have coverage and devices. Of course, apart from that, during the pandemic, this sector boomed in the value chain. Education in private sector was somewhat 60-40 or 50-50 on a level of engagement. Banking and finance, this is the most interesting thing. Banking and finance always had the opportunity to go digital to service the customers, because it was the money that the banks and the finance companies were holding on. It was money that the banks they were holding on to, so they needed to have that circulation of money going. Otherwise, the economy would have crashed. So they made sure. But then post-pandemic, again back to square one. People are opting to be comfortable with the brick and mortar model. Of course, traveling and leisure had very little window during the pandemic to this kind of a exposure, but now it has come to a technically on the engagement level a very large number. But of course, we know in future there will be companies that will not exist because of the digitalization. Things like I would say travel agencies, even taxis. Of course, the technology will have to be embraced by the public to do that. Those are the areas that will, the speculations are that those industries will automatically get out of from the scene where the physical engagement is happening. So those are the areas that I was asked to present with a very limited time space. There are 3 other speakers as well. So that is from me. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity to me. I would like to give the forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Montini Varnukula, for that wonderful insight that you brought forward on the topic. And the enthusiasm is already by the fact that there's a question already on the chat box. I'm sure the moderator and the panel will take a note of that in the Q&A session. And of course, other participants are also welcome to send in your questions on the chat box. So during the panel discussion, those will be taken into account. And let me drive your attention towards the next speaker, the speaker number 2, to address the evening. This is none other than Ms. Shifara F. Ismail, the Group Chief Executive Officer of Wayamba Printpack Private Limited, Nippon PVC Holdings, and Nippon Toys and Helmets. So she serves as the Group Chief Executive Officer of these 3 companies, also as a financial consultant, trainer, and managing partner to Aspire Consultant Private Limited. She holds 20 plus years of professional experience in finance and corporate leadership. Has won the prestigious scholarship award in 2022 by Australian Government and Department of Foreign Affairs. She is also a Gold Award winner for corporate leadership at Top 50 Professional and Career Women Awards. She is a fellow member of CPM Sri Lanka as well as CMA Australia and New Zealand. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Shifara Ismail.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Can I share the screen, Yasha?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. So good evening, everyone, and thank you, CPM, for this wonderful opportunity. Today, here I will discuss on managing the well-being of employees during working from home. So I am planning to cover this session in 3 segments. With the introduction, I will discuss the challenges, especially the problems, and as a result, how it impacts the well-being. And then I will talk on some approaches which can be done by managers to improve the well-being of employees when working from home. For any person, the term well-being means a lot. Well-being is connected to the overall work-life satisfaction. Organizations are particularly focused on providing happiness for the staff by providing certain parameters of satisfaction at work life. So by way of autonomy, consistent and meaningful praise and recognitions, well-being incentives, interacting and bonding events likewise. When it comes to well-being, one can talk about the emotional well-being, psychological well-being, social well-being, economic well-being, as well as the physical well-being. In fact, the uncertainties created by COVID-19, also with the economic crisis, have impacted the overall well-being due to this internal pressure as well as the external pressure. So, and as explained by my colleague earlier, many organizations compelled to completely close or to do their work from home. And with that, as you all know, many challenges stimulated. And owing to these challenges emerged due to the working from home scenario, it affected the overall well-being of employees. So now we'll see how this well-being is affected by working from home. So one is the social isolation and thereby decline of team spirit among the members of the team. Generally, in team environment, people share happiness and challenges, but in a social isolated environment, the pressure is borne by individual. This impacts the emotional well-being of the staff. Next is the lack of face-to-face supervision. Supervisors worry that employees will not work as hard as efficiently. Many employees, on the other hand, struggle with reduced access to managerial support and communication. This creates imbalance between emotional states of different levels of staff. The other one is a lack of access to information. One of the major issues associated with work from home for employees is the time and effort needed to access the information from co-workers and the managers. Even getting answers to what seems like simple questions can feel like a large obstacle to work based at home. This is a real problematic situation when it comes to target-driven production environment, when the time is a crucial factor. Sometimes the employees who are working remotely are pressurized by their supervisors for the delays. Next is the speed of service delivery. Often, in the physical working environment, there are follow-ups and frequent discussions on tasks that are being shared by the teams. Unless there is an ethic-based culture in the work from home environment, this may create suspicion and mistrust between the members. Whether the staff is working or not, and can be questioned by the manager or supervisor. Thus, this can directly impact the quality of work relationships. This also questions the work-life balance. Sometimes people tend to work extra hours to complete their work. Next is the distraction at home and also the environmental factors. Everyone agree with me that when at home, children really feel and celebrate that we are with them. So they come around us and play and bring their homeworks and other problems. So we may sometimes need to cater them with the food. So we normally try to manage between these two hats. While wearing the parent hat, you need to look at the official responsibilities. This is not easy. So sometimes when we get angry and moody or when we are pressurized with the work commitment, children easily sense that. Some parents tend to punish their children and completely isolate them from their children, resulting in a poor parenting. Also, with environmental factors affecting lighting, air quality, screen exposure, temperature, workspace setups, and also the communication channels and internet connectivity, all these are not well assured in the home environment. This also creates physical pressure and pain due to lack of ergonomic factors. So next is the gender and the role conflict. Women employees were found to be more favorable to the work from home scenario compared to men. They have shown greater interest in work from home due to domestic responsibility. They have facts like flexibility and convenience, which they can relish in a work from home environment. So increased freedom, autonomy in allocating time for work and family, and sense of achievement they experience work from home. But the real problem comes when women take up challenges of balancing between the household responsibility and the work responsibilities. So I'm not making a contradictory statement here to discriminate men, but this is my personal experience of being a working mother. So now just we'll think of strategies to improve this well-being. To start, managers need to understand the factors that can make working from home especially demanding. Otherwise, high-performing employees may experience declines in job performance and engagement. When they begin working remotely, especially in the absence of preparation and training. And we must understand that every organization is different, and also the experiences of employees too. When developing programs for work from home support, pay attention to their well-being factor. Make sure to lobby and listen to feedbacks from employees about their pain points and suggest helpful actions. You will build a more effective program if your strategy addresses your organization's unique culture and its employers' particular needs. I mean, the employees' particular needs. The preparation, mutual understanding between the members on resource availability and constraints, proper training and work from home, ethical code of conduct, systematic planning and review, virtual team building activities, such as. So to look at this in detail, once you start the work from home, check in with employees more frequently. Frequent and effective communication supports healthier, more productive remote work environments. It is especially important to employees, especially Gen Z, who may have just entered the workforce and are still learning office norms. You may not be able to stop by each employee's desk like you could when you were all in the office, but digital solutions like video conferencing and messaging platforms can help bridge the communication gap. And especially, just don't overdo it. Some employees love frequent team check-ins, but others might find too many meetings are distracting. So be sensitive to your employees' needs and feedbacks when determining the communication frequency for your team. And don't hesitate to adjust meeting rhythms that are not working. The important feature is that your mode of check-ins are regular and predictable. and make a forum in which employees know that they can consult you and their concerns and questions will be heard. And provide several different communication technological options. When it comes to work from home, email alone is insufficient. We need to use a bit richer technology, for example, video conferencing, those kind of things. These kind of technologies have many advantages, especially for smaller groups. Visual cues allow for increased mutual knowledge about co-workers and also help to reduce the sense of isolation among teams. Video is also particularly useful for complex or sensitive conversations as it feels more personal than written or audio-only communications. There are other circumstances when quick collaboration is more important than visual details. For this situation, provide mobile-enabled individual messaging functionality, Microsoft Teams, Zoom likewise, which can be used for simpler, less formal conversation as well as time-sensitive communication. And then establish rule of engagement. Remote work becomes more efficient and satisfying when managers set expectations for the frequency and ideal timing of communication for their teams. Also, if you can let your employees know the best way and time to reach you during the workday, and especially keep an eye on communication among team members to the extent appropriate only, to ensure that they are sharing information as needed. It is necessary to establish this rule of engagement with employees as soon as possible, ideally during the first online check-in meetings itself. While some choices about specific expectations may be better than others, the most important factor is that all employees share the same set of expectations for communications. Next is provide opportunities for remote social interactions. One of the most essential steps a manager can take is to structure ways for employees to interact socially while working from home. This is true for all employees, but particularly so for employees who have been abruptly transitioned out of the office. The easiest way to establish some basic social interaction is to leave some time at the beginning of team calls, say just for non-working items. Say, for example, you would start spending a few minutes saying, example, we are going to spend the first few minutes just to catch up with each other. How was your weekend? Just like that. Other options include virtual pizza parties, in which pizza is delivered to all the team members at the time of virtual meeting. It sounds great, right? While these types of events may sound artificial or forced, studies reveal that virtual events help to reduce feelings of isolation, promoting a sense of belonging. This encourage boundary settings. Having a set routine minimizes stress and reduces burnout. But those routines should be flexible according to the employee's needs. For example, a working parent may prefer to go online early in the morning, then take time during the day to be with their kids, return into work in the evening. Encourage your employees to set these expectations clearly so their teammates can adapt workflows to their schedules. And encourage professional development. There is no reason why the shift to remote work should slow down an employee's career progression. In fact, it could accelerate it. Many industry certifications and trainings are already available online. Direct your employees to these resources and, if possible, offer to cover any fees. Your company also can offer internal trainings virtually, like that. Next is reduce the busy work. Employees struggling to adjust to working from home may feel overwhelmed by a number of tedious, repetitive tasks on their plates. In many cases, automation-driven solutions can take this work off their hands and free up their time for more high-level creative works. Make sure to roll out any automation solution sensitively, so employees understand the goal is ultimately to augment and not to replace their labor. And invest in upskilling, so employees have the skills they need to take advantage of new opportunities. Next is support wellness remotely. Employees may expect that they want more help from employees as they adjust to working from home. Mental health would be included in this capacity to help. Even before the pandemic, more companies were recognizing that mental health support is no longer just a nice to have thing. It is a must for a forward-thinking organization. That support can come in many forms, offering guided meditation sessions, recommending fitness apps, ensuring the company health plan covers virtual therapy, or just encouraging the use of PTO, paid time off, for staycations to help employees distress. Whichever tactics you choose, remember to model healthy habits by taking advantages. Next thing is also you have to ensure the employee loyalty. As the economic outlook remains uncertain, many companies are asking more from their employees. But this should come with the assurance that companies will support employees in return. Organizations that bring their employees' mental and physical well-being and career development a priority during the pandemic will definitely last in loyalty. They will also set themselves up for success in a world where remote work is a more common feature of work life. Also offer encouragement and emotional support. Especially in the context of an abrupt shift to remote work, it is important for managers to acknowledge stress, listen to employees' anxieties and concerns, and empathize with their struggles. If an employee is clearly struggling but not communicating stress or anxiety, ask them how they are doing. Even a general question such as, how is this remote work situation working out for you so far, kind of thing, can elicit important information that you might not otherwise hear. Once you ask the question, be sure to listen carefully to the responses and briefly restate it back to the employee to ensure that you understood the problem correctly. Let the employee's stress or concern, rather than your own, be the focus of this conversation. Research on emotional intelligence tells us that employees look for their managers for clues about how to react to sudden changes in crisis situations. As a response, if a manager communicates stress and helplessness, this will have a trickle-down effect on employees. So effective leaders take a double-edged approach, both acknowledging the stress and anxiety that employees may be feeling in difficult circumstances, but also providing affirmation of their confidence in their teams using phrases such as, this is tough, but I know we can handle it. Or let's look for ways to use our strength during this time, like this. With this support, employees are more likely to take up the challenge with a sense of purpose and focus. So thank you very much. I think you all have taken some points from presentation. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Ms. Shifara Ismail, to you as well for bringing out those insights for the audience. And let me now drive towards the third presenter for the evening. But prior to doing that, I have a few interesting facts to share with you and some exciting events lined up in the CPM calendar coming forward. And just to take you through, and we have, being a nationally responsible organization, we have been embarking on developing the SME sector ever since the COVID pandemic hit the country and understanding the problems that they had to go through. CPM continuously supported the SME sector, and there's yet another initiative that we are doing on 18th and 25th November, the SME development program, which will be a continuous program. The initial sessions will be on 18th and 25th. So that's the immediate event of Joe Institute. Then we of course have the CPM Members Fellowship Night, which had been much looked forward to event from the membership, but due to the pandemic, we couldn't do it for 2 years. But this time, Fiesta 2022 will be held on 2nd December. And also we have on 15 December, the CPM Research Forum. And 2023 calendar year will start off with the launch of Chartered Manager Journal. Had been a much sought after publication from the Institute for many years. And for 2023, we are launching it in January as well. And the annual convocation will be held on 10th January. The closing date for new applicants will be on 30th November. So we welcome all new applicants to submit your documents, forms, and payments on or before 30th November, and further details can be obtained from the Secretariat. And we have another much awaited program which we couldn't do for a couple of years due to the same issue that we experienced and we were talking about, CPM Cricket Challenge. This time it will be in January 2023 on 28 January. Coincidentally, 28 January marks the entrance of 28 teams already paid and confirmed. So that goes on to show the interest and impact the tournament, being a management institute, sports had impacted is shown by the CPM Cricket Challenge. So the name your institute has in the marketplace, even in the sporting fraternity, is beyond explanation. CPM Best Management Practices Company Awards 2023 will be held on 22nd February, and it will be another event on 22nd February itself, which is CPM International Management Conference. So 22nd February, you had two events, CPM International Management Conference as well as CPM Best Management Practices Company Awards. Then on 8th March 2023, 8th March marks one of the prominent days in the calendar, which is IWD, International Women's Day celebration. That institute is also celebrating on 8th March, and we have CPM Management Quiz Battle, which had two events, two encounters, and again for the third time we are having on 24th March 2023. So that's some information, some valuable insights to what your institute is going to do in the upcoming months. And if you have not been paying attention or if you didn't hear properly, I'll be mentioning this at the end as well so that it will be more enticing for the audience. And that being said, let me move on to the third presenter. That is none other than Mr. Chandana Ranatunga, Chief Executive Officer of Latex Green Private Limited. Mr. Chandana Ranatunga is holding an MBA, a project management professional, and BSc, qualified senior executive with over 23 years of leadership experience in several industries, covering bilateral donor-funded development project implementations, printing and paper conversion, rubber glove manufacturing, desiccated coconut production, carbonated soft drinks, ready-mix concrete production, and supply, and several other industries in Sri Lanka, Republic of Maldives, as well as the Republic of Union of Myanmar. He is a fellow member of CPM Sri Lanka, member of AAT, holding an MBA from University of Colombo, postgraduate diploma in international relations as well. Let me now hand over proceedings to Mr. Chandana Ranatunga.
Thank you, Dr. Jayatilaka. Hope you can hear me.
Yeah, can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let's begin. I'll share my screen. I think you will be able to see that. Let me get that done. Hope it's clear.
Yeah, it's clear. You can proceed.
Work from home is an employment arrangement in which employees do not, commute to work, as Dr. Jayatilaka mentioned at the beginning. This concept was evolving since 1970s and have been developing ever since. Main domain was technology and evolution of information technology. fueled fast spread of the methodology in tech and professional service companies. Looking at some stats, according to a Gallup poll in September 2021, 45% of full-time US employees work from home, including 25% who work from home all of the time and 20% who work from home part of the time. In 2020, 12.3% of employed persons, including 13.2% of women, 11.5% of men in European Union, who were aged between 15 and 64, usually work from home. By country, the percentage of workers that work from home was highest in Finland, lowest in Bulgaria at 1.2%. Looking at Sri Lankan context, I think I have Sri Lankan context, according to ILO estimates, is just 18% of workers, those who have occupation suitable for work from home and reside in countries with the infrastructure necessary to enable this practice. I think Sri Lanka is well below that level. Our experience is Sri Lankan context. This popped up during COVID-19 pandemic in Sri Lanka. During that time, the labor force participation has decreased from 51.1% to 50.2%. Unemployment rates has increased from 4.6% to 5.4%. This is partly due to the measures taken since mid-March 2020 to contain a spread of COVID-19 with lockdowns and curfews. To continue economic activities under such constraints, Sri Lankan government and private sector organizations introduced and implemented full or partial work from home policies, and success of such policies were dependent on nature of the work involved and possibility of performing such activities remotely, capability of management and workers to adapt to work from home, availability of ICT infrastructure and access to internet for both businesses and workers. As I have mentioned before, ILO says it just 18% of workers have occupation suitable for work from home and reside in countries where they have those facilities to practice work from home. Let's see what professions can work from home. According to this graph that you can see, managers, senior officials, professionals, associate professionals and clerks, according to their nature of work, more inclined or have possibilities to work from home. Their jobs could be performed at home by using technology and other infrastructure. But service workers, the industry that I come from, service workers, skilled agricultural workers, craft and related workers, machine operators, elementary occupations are required to be at the floor. You can't do your work from home unless, of course, you're doing a manufacturing of a component of a finished product. You have to be at the floor to perform your work. If you do a component assembly, a component completion, you can do it at home, provided that the employer is facilitating such component completion at your home. So these areas, like the occupations, service workers, skilled agricultural workers, craft related workers, machine operators, elementary occupations, they had to be at the floor. So these were the challenges, these were the occupations that we had a lot of issues in getting work done to continue these national economic activities in Sri Lanka. How we have dealt with them, I'll speak about those in later slides, and let's see what type of education levels that you can see is more feasible, or rather more tend to work from home rather than at the factory floor. If your workforce, if your employees have no education, so primary incomplete or primary complete education below O levels or just O level pass, you have to have a facility to accommodate them at the factory floor, because they have to be at the production floor to do their job. And if your employees are AL passed, A levels, advanced level pass, qualified with some diploma or some other qualification, and then have degrees and above qualification, they tend to have more opportunities to work from home. So occupations and educational levels also play a bigger role in deciding whether work from home could be a successful arrangement that organization can venture into. So these the professions, let's say white collar jobs could be performed from home. Blue collar jobs, you have to be at the work floor. So what are the new arrangements that the organizations have to make to facilitate this? You can't keep your factory closed. You can't keep your national economy closed because of pandemic or because of some other emergency. You have to keep this wheel running. Now we had to adjust. Production guys, production companies had to agree or make arrangements to facilitate this work arrangement, making the factory floor as their home. They cannot be at their own home. So we had to make our factories like their home so that they can stay and work. We had to do dormitories. People were accommodated in those. We had to do that because they can't commute. Provision of meals, just providing accommodation is not sufficient. Provision of meals was a challenge because people accommodated at dormitories didn't have opportunity to buy meals outside. Health precaution had to be taken. Medical emergency readiness had to be kept prepared. You had to have an ambulance. You have to have an emergency contact to PHI, to MOH, or anyone else, the health authorities or hospitals in the area, so that you can take these people in. Later, medical hospitals were not taking these patients also in. It's a different story. But then how to stop sharing of meals, utensils, cigarettes, people, factory employees, those who used to, smoke cigarettes, they used to share those. Those were problems, those were causing widespread of COVID-19. So we had to have controls in place to stop those. Reduction of workforce. We couldn't do anything because there was a natural, absenteeism and job losses. People don't come to work. So we had to revisit our card allocation, review that, reallocate, and reduce number of employees that we used to have before the pandemic, before this work from home concept came into our scene. And we had to multi-skill people. We had to develop multi-skill teams, multi-skill work groups, so that we can continue our normal work at the factory. Our production targets need to be met. Our export deadlines need to be met. So we had to do all this to keep our production running. So because of this, there were productivity improvements. We have seen cost reductions, and then bottom line has improved. I think if you go and look at figures, I'll show you some figures. It's this phenomenal, exponential increase in their bottom lines and the profitability. Some of the companies, some, SMEs had to close down, very unfortunate, feel sorry for them. But then there were a lot of other companies, those who were performing well. So with this, on the other hand, people were so, skeptical, or they were suspicious whether they could lose their jobs, entire, job, the living, whether they will lose that, because this was so terrible. People were losing, companies were closing down, those were terrible. So people improved, people started contributing more. The productivity improved. With those, companies looked at salary revisions, new working hours, new roster schedules, and giving leave. If our previous schedule was 12-hour shift, went to 24-hour shifts and 36-hour shifts, and then you give a few days break. We had to prepare rosters in order to accommodate that. Labor law, labor rules, regulations, all violated, because we had to keep people at the factory. We provided them meals. We asked them whether you can work. They were ready to work. They had sufficient break, resting hours in between as well. Production cycle runs, as an example, in a vulcanizing, in a production flow, you have 45 minutes of vulcanizing time. So those could be used as rest hours. So there were ample rest hours for people. People were continuing to work 24, 36 hours. New opportunities were created, as my colleague mentioned earlier. They were higher income earning agricultural work, door-to-door deliveries, and various other stuff. Practical experiences, others, approvals needed from MOH, PHI. I don't have to tell you, how difficult it was. Department of Police, IGP's office issues some circulars. The guy, the police officer at the Mahiyangana roadblock doesn't know what it is, and we had to carry those. Border investment had to get involved. Line ministries and departments had to get involved. All the vehicles were, carrying essential service name boards. On the road, police checkpoints were everywhere. We were not allowed to move freely, and they were asking for various other, approvals and things like that. Workstations, body temperature measuring and recording. Security officers were given different other new work, and they were terrorized. They had a dilemma when a MD of the company comes, whether they can go with a pistol-like thermometer and measure their body temperature. Can you ask him whether I'm going to lose my job? People come with egos and different other problems. Face masks, steamers. We had to provide steamers at the workplaces, because 3 times a day people had to do a steaming because of this risk. Isolated areas had to be created, because if you're exposed to a suspected COVID patient, we had to isolate them for some time, quarantine them, hand sanitizers, hand washing stations, and those were there. So managing and handling complaints by neighbors and well-wishers. You get everyone around you goes and complains, so that you had to deal with those as well. So results, I'll look at results. These are not my graphs or figures. These are from SoftLogic stockbrokers. They say quarterly earnings went up by 48% year on year since third quarter 2020, despite Delta-driven lockdowns and curfews. Year-to-date 9-month earnings, of these listed companies, 292 billion, surpass all historical 12 months results in CSC. Banking sector, capital goods, healthcare, telecommunication, all sectors have shown tremendous growth in their earnings. These are only, mind you, these are only listed companies' performance at the Colombo Stock Exchange. Their bottom line, their individual company earnings and all that, we'll have to relook at. These were due to pent-up demand cycles, protectionist policies at that time, import restrictions, loan moratorium. We have no options other than restricting these imports, loan moratoriums, and expansionary monetary policies driven down interest rates were key factors for these. And export earnings, I don't have to tell you all this, recorded highest number of exports during this time. If you look at August 2022, 1.2 billion export earnings that we have recorded. These were the results that we have seen with work from home plus other combined approaches in managing these issues. What next? What do we have to do next? Sri Lankan labor regulations, Shop and Office Act, Factory Ordinance, Wages Board Ordinance, and other applicable labor laws and all that need to be reviewed, because this is a different situation. Now laws have to be changed to accommodate that. Otherwise, it will be another hassle that we have to take on as companies. Definition of employee, place of work, remuneration, hours of work, and other terms and conditions applicable for employment will have to be investigated, as there could be legal implications for companies, those who adapt new working arrangements for factory employees. Government can improve work from home activities by supporting firms to organize work from home, and by improving access to work from home and all others. And the results also suggest that facilitating work from home may be a way to increase female labor force for participation, component manufacturing. Organizations have to look at components of a product and see what components could be done at work from home to facilitate employees to perform them at home. So not only ICT facilities, but other infrastructures would also need to be developed and provided to employees. Given the nature of employment, workers in some occupations will find it challenging to work from home, and alternative strategies must be used to keep these workers active. Some examples of such strategies include working under strict social distancing measures and providing better protective gear to mitigate health risks, as some of them I have spoken before. That's it from me. Thank you very much. With this experience that we have, I think regulators, the policymakers, and I don't know about legislators, but they have to sit together, develop a policy which suits this country. We need to continue this hybrid method of working. Thank you very much, everybody.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chandra Artunga, for sharing knowledge with us. And with all the presenters completed their presentations, it is now time for the all-important panel discussion. And I can see there are some questions being shared on the chat box, and the participants are most welcome to share more questions, and the panel will be geared to and ready to answer all these questions. And just another hint from CPM, if you notice that as a practice, we always invite our members and fellow members to be panelists and to become moderators. So today also we have a power-packed panel and a moderator. All four are members, and three of them happens to be fellow members. So one significant feature of CPM evening presentation series is that we always give the opportunity to our own members, where all these sessions for the last, I think, a year or so, we have been having all our members and fellow members doing the honors in this evening presentation series. So without further ado, let me hand over the proceedings to the moderator. But prior to do so, I will have to introduce her to the house. So our moderator today evening is Ms. Ruwaiha Razik. She is a banker turned academic. Ms. Ruwaiha Razik is currently working as a senior lecturer attached to the Department of Human Resources Management, Faculty of Management and Finance at the University of Colombo. She holds a bachelor's degree in HRM from the University of Kelaniya and an MBA from Waseda University in Japan. She is a member of CPM and holds memberships in other professional bodies, which include the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants UK, CIMA, and the Institute of Bankers of Sri Lanka. Let me now hand over the proceedings to the moderator.
Thank you, Dilhan. Am I audible, Dilhan?
Yes, you're audible.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The focal point of our discussion today is the working from home work modality, which most of us experienced for the first time with the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, working from home is one of the many forms of telework. If we go back to the roots of telework, I think Mr. Chandana also referred to this. The concept of telework was first coined by Nilis in the 1970s during the great oil crisis, which was mainly experienced in the US. Now, by introducing the concept of telework, Nilis and the colleagues, they thought that if they could reduce the commuting to the work, they could save their draining oil reserves. So this was actually the birth of the concept of telework. Now, the remote working in general could mean working from anywhere else but office. However, the focus of our conversation today is working from home, which is working particularly from the home where an employee generally resides. Now, before the COVID pandemic, remote work was mostly a mark of flexibility enabled by the organization, and from the employee's point of view, for them, it was mostly an option. However, during the COVID pandemic, working from home transformed to be a business necessity for the organizations and a forced initiative for the employees. Today, our three panelists spoke about how the working from home work modality impacted on different parties, such as employers, employees, also customers, and another important player in the business ecosystem, the manufacturing industry, and how they grappled with what we may call as the reverse working from home work modality, where they expected the factory floor employees to work and reside within the factory premises. Now, effect from the pandemic has kind of dampened right now. Different organizations have different opinions about continuing with the working from home work modality. Now, some organizations have done away with the working from home completely by now, but some have opted a hybrid working model. For example, in July this year, Elon Musk instructed that working from home should be discontinued at Tesla, whereas Carlos Tavares, the CEO of Stellantis, announced that they are adopting a hybrid modality. So the opinions of the business leaders, even by basing within the same industry as signaled out by the two giants in the automotive industry, about continuation of working from home appears to be diverged and polarized. However, we cannot forget the fact that the emergence of other disruptions in the world where we live and operate our businesses continue to increase. War, political instability, energy crisis, and also other anthropogenic crises, such as the environmental effects, are skyrocketing. So, though the pandemic seemed to be calmed a bit, other tensions and turbulences keep on increasing. Therefore, we may never know how soon we will be compelled to go back to our working from home days again. Now, this is why we need to assess what went right and what went wrong, and how to capitalize on what lessons we learned in our recent forced working from home experience. Now, in today's discussion, our eminent panelists shared with us how the forced working from home exercise affected employers, employees, customers, and also different industries. We also have some exciting questions in our chat box, and I think a few of those questions are already addressed. But moving on with the Q&A session, first of all, I would like to know the opinion of our esteemed panelists, CEOs of great organizations, on continuing with working from home. Mr. Montini, if I ask you first, what is your opinion on this? In your particular industry, do you support the view that we should continue with this modality? or should we keep it only as an option during adversity?
Am I audible?
Yes, Mr. Monty.
Yes, I think in my opinion, I will relate my answer to the field of area that I'm involved in. Just as in the presentation, as I showed, the business that this banking and finance sector can be, it can be remotely accessed, not having a brick and mortar model. Of course, we think that's the future in this kind of business, but of course, there are limitations where you need the physical presence for limited certain transactions. But other than that, I would like to say that we were successful during the pandemic operating our business, because before the pandemic came, we had a plan to do a BPR, business process re-engineering, where the onboarding of customers and processing of customers, the files and the approvals would be done remotely. So whether it's work from home or work from a different location was not the question. We were technically, we thought that we should be able to do a process, a loan facility to a customer standing under Jack tree. That was the idea. So so before the pandemic hits, we had all our sales team, which was 1,200, 1,300, given the accessibility of cloud space, availability of handheld devices, of course, training, because this remote working needs a lot of training, how to handle those situations then and there. Otherwise, they get stuck because there's nobody to ask, right? The training, and of course, the internet access to Wi-Fi, the wireless, the dongles and the wingles and other stuff. So it was, the infrastructure was laid. And that's how, if I may say, I think we should have a hybrid, maybe 60-30 or 60-40 or 70-30. Because during the pandemic also, we were involved in main line of business is mobilizing funds and granting loans. So granting of loans did take place during the pandemic. Of loans, again, we do say two main assets, gold and vehicles. We had the privilege of doing the normal execution, but of course, about 50% less, 60% less than what the normal course of business. And also, if you look at mobilizing deposits, we used a digital platform called iPay to mobilize, or customers could self-on board, create a deposit certificate, and have the ownership to them through their digital platform, which was called iPay. And that iPay platform can had access or have access to entire the banking system, where any customer can link their bank account to this iPay platform and do transactions. At the same time, we are in lending business. Collecting of monthly rentals was paramount. So we use the same direct debit methodology and the digital platforms to make sure that whatever the monies that we have lent out was collected. Of course, there was certain hiccups, difficulties, that is getting the customers to become digitally savvy. But yes, but we were successful, just like Mr. Chandana Ranatunga explained. The banking sector had a booming even now, even this year, or even, for a matter of fact, during the pandemic time period as well. There was a booming income came. So I would think, yes, a hybrid model where more focus on remote working, and then the brick and mortar model, I would say, will say we have 200 plus locations in island wide. I still think whether we need that 200, because a sales force of 4,000, do you need 200 locations to service customers? So it's a debatable thing, but yes, I think my opinion would be we should have a hybrid, more focusing on work from out of office.
Thank you, Mr. Montenay, for sharing your views. And Ms. Shipara, what is your take on this? What do you think, in conclusion, whether we should continue with this, or whether we should discard it, or should we keep this as an option?
Yes. I would say working from home is an opportunity for companies to explore new ways of doing work. particularly for people who ever need flexibility, can enjoy working from home. Having said that, organizations need to train their staff well in this caliber to go for work from home hybrid mode whenever it is needed. In any work environment, there is an element of team spirit when working together on critical missions. I feel from my own experience, this is the new area where human resource management of an organization need additional attention on staff well-being and to manage workforce in this volatile environment. Production-oriented organizations are compelled to engage people in the day-to-day machines-driven operations. On the other hand, companies like us, at least 30% of staff are working on the general office environment, which could able to limit work from home mode for the office works. But organizations are generally designed to deliver expectations with optimum resources. And I think this is where the problem starts. For example, when few staff not present at work physically, that creates a kind of internal pressures. If I take my packaging material manufacturing company as an example, we had a situation where there were panic buying from the customers, resulted in increase in demand for raw materials. The management also concerned about the consistent supply of order, managing of supply chain, while let production flow employees report to work, and then the logistical issues related to employees working from home, as well as the employees who reported to work. Therefore, I would say it is necessary to articulate the strategic policies and decisions related to work from home, as Montini mentioned, ERP kind of things, and also especially focusing on logistics, timing, meeting arrangements, and also strategies to maintain the morale of employees during work from home. And also, it is important to introduce such a culture where working from home can ensure the same results that of the regular mode. Then only it will be a good decision to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shifara. Moving on to you, Mr. Chandana. Now, your experiences are quite different because part of your employees were working from home. And I think part of your other employees who are particularly on the factory floor, they were into something like a reverse working from home mode. What is your take on this? What do you think, Mr. Chandana? Would you support the viewpoint of continuing with working from home, or do you have a different opinion?
I would say that it depends. You know, my suggestion is that has to continue. You know, you have to create that fear psyche. I don't know how it is, whether it is good or bad, but then when you are pushed to corners, people tend to perform more. So you tell them, look here, if you don't work, we are going to die. So let us work together, work more. We'll give you more rest. Okay, we'll pay you more. Let us work together. So I think this model has to continue.
Mr. Chandana, I think
during normal.
Okay.
Do you hear me now? Or?
Yes, fine.
Yeah. Okay. My suggestion or my personal opinion is that this model has to continue.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chandana. We also have a comment from Buddhika Atukorala. Mr. Nandana Suryarachi. He also suggests that alternatively, we can have officers from different locations in the country where infrastructure can be arranged. It can be called work from nearest place to home. I think some organizations already had this practice, and thank you very much for sharing your opinion also with us. We really value it. And also moving on, Mr. Chandana, this question is again back to you. Now, operating the reverse working from home mechanism appears to be a coordinated effort of several stakeholders, as you explained in your presentation. And we also have few messages in the chat box relating to what I'm going to ask from you now. Now, I'm interested to know from these very many stakeholders, what do you think the role of the policymakers and legislators in facilitating such an endeavor, if in case future turbulences may warrant us a transition similarly, Mr. Chandana?
Rubeha, it's like this, my point of view is this: whether we
Yes.
have a pandemic or
Yes.
the war in Ukraine or not, we need to have our policy in place. Now,
Right.
do we have a policy? Do we have policies that supports this type of arrangements? If you ask the Commissioner of Labor, he'll say, you continue, you do 36 hours. We'll keep our eyes closed. That is not the solution for this. Let us sit together. Let us sit together. All the policymakers come together. We sit and discuss and develop a policy framework. We don't exploit our employees. We have paid them more. We have given them more time to stay at home, and we have paid them more. But they were not working 8 hours. They were continuously working for 36 hours. If you look at labor law point of view, all others would agree that is totally wrong, and then humanly impossible. And you're exploiting, you're killing your employees. We don't, that is the interpretation that they can give. But only thing, let us tell them, look here, it's enough. We come together, sit together, not politicians actually, industries, the private sector, the policy, but the government officials come together, sit together, and develop a policy framework according to new laws or according to new conditions. If new laws are to be enacted, let us go to the legislature and tell them, look here, this is needed. You do this. They'll of course will not understand. Probably they might think how much that they can make out of it. But then we as companies, we need to get this thing done to sustain these businesses. Yeah. So policymakers, the private sector, the industry chambers, all have to come together, develop a new set of rules and regulations to carry this forward.
Thank you very much. Yes, we still have, if we look at our laws, they talk about having separate washrooms, having clean floors, but not these, new contemporary emerging situations have not been accommodated. I fully agree with you, Mr. Chandana. And we had a question from Nandana concerning how these legislations should change. And I think Mr. Chandana addressed your question in his comment, Mr. Nandana. Okay, Mr. Montini, now moving on to you. Now, although working from home was a forced initiative, it was kind of a blessing for service organization, which directly involved with retail customers in order to get their customer base also to interact with the organization out of a brick and mortar setting. Now, as you indicated, this mass scale transition was a novice experience for most of the customers. Going forward with this system, what changes would you like to see in a future-ready customer base, Mr. Montini?
Yes, I would say now the current IT and digital literacy in Sri Lanka is at 30% and 46%, which means people whom we can get on board for this kind of activity, because working remote, work from home, work from other place needs this digital intervention from both the institution and the customer as well. So we have a huge challenge in front of us, getting the rest of the people, even though we know that Sri Lanka uses like 2 times the population of mobile phones that we have. The literacy according to the statistics is this. So we have 60, close to 54 people, 54% of the population should come into this literacy rate. The interesting fact is that the population, we have 5.3 million households, out of which population above 18 years is 16.2 million, according to the statistics. And from this, the labor force is 8.4 million. The other part is not in the labor force. So we have a quite a large, in terms of the Sri Lankan context, we have a large number of potential customers to create this environment. But at the same time, 60%, close to 60% and close to 70% is not tech savvy. I would say just plainly not tech savvy. So what is the government's plan, procedure to bring from the school level when they pass out, whether they are, of course, the X generation didn't have the pleasure of having this being tech savvy, right? But the millennials do. So what is the plan? I mean, that kind of a plan, whether it's MSMEs that they need to focus, they can start even at MSME level. They can start programs. They should reach out to companies where they have the reach to do that. It could be chamber, it could be a company like even a bank can start that. So I think the challenge is that it's not about feeding the 40% that we have in our hand. It's about the rest of the team, because in this value chain, if you look at the value chain, it is not only the last two components that we should concentrate. We should concentrate the entire 5 or 6 components. If you do that, then working remote or working from home or working from any different location, of course, limitations are there. Just like Mr. Sandana said, if they are in producing, manufacturing a certain component, they can do it. But then, other than that, if they are required to work in a flow of a factory or other premises, it's a different matter. But then the rest of the people, we can get on board in this manner because it saves, like I explained, for the company as well as for the employee, a lot of benefits. So even at school level, there should be a plan, or even now we have entrepreneurs from at the age of 18, 20, there should be a proper plan to get them on board, give them, apart from the marketing or financial discipline habits, this digitization and computer literacy should be inculcated. Then I think that should be done.
Thank you very much, Mr. Montini. Mr. Farah, now you spoke a lot about HR aspects, the mental health, well-being, so many things. Now, one of the biggest criticisms of working from home is that it poses a threat by promoting employee alienation, because this mechanism separates employees by preventing face-to-face interactions. As you know, these kind of face-to-face interactions are very useful in order to nurture a proper corporate culture and in mentoring. So therefore, some people say that this alienation discourages and affects the juniors the most. Now, what is your opinion about this?
Yes, I would say whether it is seniors or juniors, the challenge of an organization is engaging staff and ensuring the productivity. Of course, people like to be connected and to feel the sense of community, even though some people like enjoying the benefits of working in an office environment and others prefer working from home. A face-to-face interaction has better emotional attachment compared to working from home, especially the Gen Z workforce is very much connected to social media. And the aspect of employee alienation is common in both regular work environment as well as in the working from home. I would say this happens when they feel separated from themselves and others, and this can even happen in regular working environment. Employee alienation can happen for several reasons. They may not feel empowered to speak their minds because their managers don't let them know they want employees' feedback. Employees might be scared to speak up or think it is inappropriate to volunteer in honest opinion if their managers is not asking for it. Additionally, this could occur when managers don't pay appropriate attention to employees. A performance review once a year is not enough to evaluate and track employees' performance properly. So managers being in constant communication with employees and holding regular one-to-one meeting can remedy this. So I think organizations must become smarter to capitalize on this using range of strategies, as I mentioned in my presentation, to ensure better engagement while making sure that their well-being is taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shifara. Yes, I also agree with you that in order to interact, it doesn't have to be on all 5 days. So perhaps you can arrange something like a hybrid system where the employees can come and work once a week or something like that, so that these mentoring efforts and all those will not be completely gone out of sight. So thank you very much. And also I see some, on the chat box. Before moving into, I think we've covered some of the questions here. Now, again, I have some other questions also. Now, Mr. Montini, now in your particular presentation, you also spoke about the concept of work and task. Now, if we look at work, the concept of work, it has 2 aspects, the quantum and the quality of work. Now, in relation to this quantum and quality mix in work, some opponents of the work from home concept, they say that work is actually multiplied when working from home is enforced. And they give some example, like in giving class instructions. I think Ms. Shifara also touched upon this. A face-to-face interaction facilitates giving clear instructions and clarifying doubts then and there, whereas during working from home, a task went back and forth multiple times, and that at each iteration, completely new set of instructions had to be given. Now, what do you think about this? Does working from home increase the quantum of work or otherwise?
I'll give an answer which can be also can be debated, but looking at my experience, like I said, the company was ready for a big revamp in terms of turning into a process-driven company. So each and every job role that needs to be performed, whether it's sales, operations, after sales, or cash office, everyone had a workflow to follow. So when you have that workflow, when I said the workflow, it's on a Oasis platform or a digital platform where each and every step was clearly visible on a forward integration model. So even a newcomer who is 6 months old in the company or 10-year-old in the company, it all depend on how they embrace that digital intersurface, right? So this is very true, because somebody, if any institution is not geared to offer that workflow for each and every business line of business, whether it's a deposit, whether it's a lending, whether it's some kind of transaction, then the training or the customer interaction from the superior had to happen. So if you have that workflows ready, and a platform like Teams where you can have instant chats to respective divisions, of course, yes, in the initial stages there was a little duplication, but then when you do routine work, you get used to it. You get used to it, and then following that workflow, it was very easy. Not very easy, I wouldn't say that. Over a period of time, maybe 3 months, 4 months, all staff got used to it. The duplication levels got minimized. The errors got minimized. Of course, yes, people or staff who didn't want to embrace the change, they were left out because they could not meet the quantum or the quality. And of course, the performance appraisals, whatever, they got highlighted, because out of 10 tasks, they could only perform 6 or 7, whereas others completing that 10 tasks during that period of time, they had time for more tasks even. So they could drag another assignment, pending assignment, and complete it. So the success was the workflows clearly demarcated, given, and access given. So yes, that's how it was sorted.
Right. What you basically say is that the management has a role to clarify and delineate these things, to clarify these things, and by coming up with workflows, and also have proper infrastructure, which Ms. Shifara pointed out as well. We should not depend only on email. So you wait until someone checks the email and responds. So this is where the delays in the workload may occur. Right. Thank you, Mr. Montini. And Ms. Shifara, now the next question is around presenteeism. Actually, I think both, I think Mr. Montini also said, and you also said, and I also agree that working from home in a way helped us to engage in our household chaos as well, while literally or technically, being at work. Mr. Montini said that it was a luxury which we could not enjoy before. And we also have a comment on our chat box that, employees may misuse this opportunity by not engaging in their tasks, so which is referred to as presenteeism. Now, actually, presenteeism is another blame that those who do not support work from home highlight, because employees may not function fully when they work from home. Now, how do you think employers can reduce employee presenteeism if they are to continue with working from home or hybrid working models, Ms. Sifara?
Yes, in a nutshell, presenteeism occurs when an employee is working in a situation where they shouldn't be. So in other words, presenteeism is a practice where staff are present at work but are not being productive. This can happen not only in remote working, but in both the working conditions. On the surface, some of these behaviors may not seem problematic, but presenteeism is an issue that can be just as damaging for a business as absenteeism due to staff stress and burnout, which will be leading to more sickness and absenteeism issues later down the line. So working from home doesn't mean that employees are supposed to mark time as if they are performing. Also, it is necessary to make everyone understand that healthy working practices are important even in unusual circumstances. So routine and regular communication can help employees maintain a healthy working schedules. This will also help managers check in on staff who may need to take sick leave or are struggling with motivation while working remotely, and dealing with the stress of isolation and uncertainty, which is more than understandable in the current global situation. And also, when working from home, managers must always ensure working with the right set of KPIs, deadlines, and measurable results of their work. So training the staff on managing KPIs using digital tools and project management apps, these tips could help to overcome the issue of presenteeism, as I thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sifara. And I think somebody had, Mr. Ranil had posed this question on the chat box. I hope your question was answered. Mr. Chandana, the final question is to you. In transitioning in the new work modalities during the pandemic, both manufacturing and non-manufacturing firms needed extra investments. Now, this again raises the age-old long debate on the importance of slack resources, which basically refers to a cushion of resources that enables organizations to adapt to uncertainty successfully. Because or in ordinary circumstances, what organizations think is that you should not invest on any resources that does not give any immediate or measurable outcome because of opportunity cost. Now, do you support the view that organizations should maintain slack resources, particularly as we are in an era where we are grappling with shortages in resources, Mr. Chandana?
Yeah. No, I would. Why do organizations have resources? They need resources for survival. They need resources for their growth.
Continuation.
Yeah, for their sustainable competitive advantage, and then improve financial profitability or performance. So in that case, to the slack resources, meaning of that, I don't know. Sometimes resource constraints also help organizations to be creative. Slack resources, in my view, is needed, let's say, in these situations to convert your machinery
I think he's frozen.
to a PLC-driven machinery. I think it has let us invest on those the resources has to come in supporting these work from home arrangements. So not only ICT, but there are other technologies that you can use for production machinery as well. So technology, the resources has to come in that. And then what about human resources? Anduai katuai basunnahata vada, you need some people, those who have experience, those who have practical knowledge and the theoretical knowledge. There are people, there are young boys, those who are coming out of these technical colleges, the universities with lot of knowledge in mechatronics, all that technology that involves this industry. Now in Sri Lanka, we have not taken a lot of those technologies into our equation. I think the slack resource comes into play at this. Let's modernize these manufacturing industries, bring the latest equipment, bring the qualified, educated, good quality employees into the picture. So let them handle this. Associate professionals can work from home. So hardworking, manual work has to be done at the floor, but at the same time, machine, troubleshoot, not necessarily to be slack resources, need investments. Those will not go without producing results. Those will definitely produce results. I do agree that organizations have to bring in money, have to invest in this, because we have seen during the past last two financial years, our corporate sector performance, some of them have performed badly, but most of them have performed very well. Our export earnings have recorded very good results. So let us take this chance. Let us take this example, experience, and then bring this required investment. Even with government intervention, everyone is Asian Development or whatever, IMF or whoever who need Suma money. We need money to invest on technology and then get this done. So in the long run, say 5, 10, 15 years down the line, we'll become a developed nation with this slack resource.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hopefully. Thank you, Mr. Chandana. Now, before I wind up the session, there are so many questions, but I've picked two questions. There is one question around the power cuts, that how this is going to affect. And I think we all experience this. And I would like to make a small comment on this rather than opening it to our panelists again, because Mr. Chandana Ranatunga pointed out a very, very interesting point. When there is a severe resource, crisis, you become more creative. And also, I think Ms. Sifara also pointed out that some mothers who had children who are school going, they swapped their work times in order to be more comfortable. So let me just share with you one experience as a lecturer in a university. Power cuts really affected us, and for me, having a class does not mean that just because I have power that I could have the class on Zoom, because there were different rosters for power cuts. So at any point of time, there will be students. But then we had to move on to on-demand lectures rather than going on for live lectures. So we had to, because as Mr. Chandana said, we had to find out some solutions, because we could not postpone their lectures. The age is passing by. We had to continue with their exams. So we did find some creative solutions. And I would remind you that, yes, when there are issues with resources, we will be more creative. And also there is another point, working from home may be more suitable to white-collar employees, but I think Mr. Chandana addressed all that part as well. And also there is one final comment that in Sri Lanka, the digital savviness is better than whoever around our neighboring people in our neighboring countries. I fully agree with that. And actually, in terms of the figures, we may be far back compared to the developed countries. But according to the Network Readiness Index, Global Network Readiness Index, which is an initiative by the World Economic Forum, it talks about the readiness of a country to embrace ICT. We are in the 83rd place out of 134 countries. And I must say in South Asia, there are only 5 countries and we lead all of them. So this is as per the 2020 index, just at the pandemic. I don't know how it has changed. So actually, as everybody pointed out, there are certain positives for us to take and look at. And also, finally, I would like to say that Mr. Montini and Mr. Chandana presented remarkable statistics. They showed that many organizations have excelled compared to their past era, while acknowledging the fact that certain organizations actually perished. Now, what does this mean? Again, in the conversation, one thing that was highlighted is the role of the leaders, the managers. So, in essence, in our conversation, what emerged is that organizations and individuals need to be resilient. You can bend, but you should not break. So therefore, finally, in my concluding remark, what I can say is, as the popular English adage says, when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. With that, I would like to hand over the control to Dr. Diane, and I would like to make a special thanks to my exceptionally great panelists. Thank you so much. Over to you, Dr. Dilhan.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ruweha Rasik, our moderator. It's a wonderful panel discussion, of course, a timely one at a point where we are analyzing how work from home is impacting how it will be in future. So let me say hats off to the panelists, Mr. Chandan Ranatunga, Ms. Shifara F. Ismail, as well as Mr. Montini Varnakula, brilliantly moderated by Ms. Ruweha Razik. So that being said, we see audience still patiently waiting, given the fact that it is a very worthwhile discussion that we were indulged in. And I'm sure this 30th presentation of evening for managers, where we spoke of working from home during and in concluding the EFM, I have few announcements once again, and of course, if you were not paying attention or if you lost connection, I have few announcements on the calendar of events that are coming up. We are starting off with the SMA development program, which is soon after this EFM on 18th and 25th November, that we are going to continue this for a prolonged period of time, assisting the SME sector. Then we have CPM Members Fellowship Night on 2nd December, which is named as Fiesta 2022. CPM Research Forum will be held on 15th December, while the Chartered Manager Journal will earmark the launch and the initiation of the year 2023 in January. That would be launched. Then annual convocation will take place on 10th January. Most importantly, the deadline for new applications fall on 30th November. So please make sure you get necessary information from the Secretariat and get your membership application finalized. CPM Cricket Challenge on 20th January 2023, already 28 teams confirmed participation. CPM Best Management Practices Company Awards 2023, as well as CPM International Management Conference 2023 are scheduled for 22nd February. International Women's Day celebration falls on 8th March 2023, and CPM is going to celebrate that. And also CPM Management Quiz Battle on 24th March. So power-packed series of events in the upcoming 2 months, as well as in the Q1 of 2023. So we dearly welcome all you members from different fraternities to come and join hands with CPM fraternity, so that this is one organization, one association in the country where all professionals of various capacities get together. We have different associations for various industries or subjects, or what do you call deviations, but this is one single entity for all the professionals to get together. So without further ado, let me thank audience for being so patient, and let me also thank the governing council members attended, as well as the panelists and the moderator. Thank you very much, and let's see you once again at the 31st